Hey y'all, John Joffrey here in Austin, Texas with Revent Builds. We're back out here at our Tarrytown project. If you know from our past videos, we showed us pouring slab and concrete. It was an existing garage with a carport. Now it's a 2-car garage and we have a guest suite above. So come check this out. Okay, so first off, if you remember, this was the existing slab. That was the new slab. So that's full of grade beams. This side, we did a cap all the way across to level this out. So that means that we brought this floor up about 4 inches. So this ceiling existing was too short. It was like 7'6". So we went ahead and we raised our plate. This is called the top plate. It's basically just where the ceiling is in a home. And these 2 pieces of 2x4 make up the top plate. This one piece of 2x4 down here makes up the bottom plate. Also, if you remember from one of our earlier videos, I was talking about manufactured trusses. So these right here, you get a great look into manufactured truss system. So basically what they do is our engineer, he specs out this span. This is about 20 feet, give or take. This gets sent off to our truss manufacturer, and then they actually design all of these trusses. Right here, for the bigger loads, we doubled it up. That's called the girder truss. And then all these other trusses are single manufactured trusses. And remember I was telling you they have those metal tabs that kind of just hold this webbed system of triangles together. So each one of these is specifically numbered and marked, and they go in according to the plan. So like when we get to here, our trusses are much smaller because this is what starts our bay window. And in between that, all of this stuff is spec'd out from our structural engineer. Again, proper planning, we just color in the lines. It's awesome. It makes our job a lot easier. Now, of course, there's a lot of on-site adjustments that we make to make things work in conjunction with our structural engineer, but for the most part, we know exactly what lumber is going into our houses in what locations. Let me show you a little bit on this bay window. We're matching the one in the front, but typically it's gonna be cantilevered outside of the house framing, which means basically this portion above me is not supported directly underneath it. But these beams that go through, they're supported all the way back into here. They tie into our manufactured trusses. If you wanted to recess a beam, you'd put it up in the ceiling, and these metal tabs right here, they're called hangers. So then all of our LVLs or our joists, they hang on the beams where they intersect. This is literally just a U piece of metal is nailed in all around and nailed to this beam, and then that attaches the 2 together. Okay, so as we walk through, remember, this is a non-complying structure. All of this was existing. The city let this be grandfathered in if we kept it exactly where it was in place. We also have a 10-foot setback off the back of the property. That is where our second story starts. So this is where things get tricky. If you remember, we had to dig in there. I was doing kung fu on the fence to try to find our survey pins. So all those pins are very accurately located on our lot, and it shows the boundaries of the property. We get the survey company to come out and actually stake out the corners of our foundations. We measure all that stuff because on this property, we're pushed up right up against the legal setback. Where we built this second story is exactly 10 feet off of our property line, and that is the new buildable area. So when we come back in to do the second story, this is a new structure. The city said, okay, you can leave this as non-compliant, grandfathered in, but if you want to go up, you have to meet our 10-foot setback, and you have to be more than 7'6" away from the power lines. So here's a fun fact. I am inside of our home. This plumbing pipe is not, and it should be, right inside this wall. And if you see, we're literally the width of this pipe outside of our wall. Okay, now, to be honest, I mean, this stuff happens. It's not that big of a deal. We're always in a rush. We're pushing them to get their plumbing in. They measured off the slab. I mean, we're talking about a few inches here, but it's a good lesson that this could have had much bigger implications. Ultimately, we'll just chip out this concrete, get this drain line in the wall, and we'll be good to go. All right, come on up to the top of the treehouse. Let's give you a little tour of the upstairs. So we're up here in our treehouse. I think this is a good opportunity to A, just kind of see how this stuff comes together, but B, it's easy to just look at components And like when people talk about a ridge, for instance, all that is the center beams at the point of a gable. So that's under that triangle. That runs always the span. A ridge runs the span of the gable. And now coming off of that ridge on either side, you see those 2x6s, those are what's called rafters. So a lot of the time when people want to loft the ceiling, all they're talking about, for instance, if we wanted to just make a false ceiling here, we could put that at 8 feet tall, but if we want to loft it, we just take everything out and basically put our sheetrock right up against those rafters. So that's what lofting a ceiling would be. Now these here, this is actually a design element that we're keeping through the build. The homeowners are escape artists and they want to plan to get underneath lasers through the property. Ah! Help! They must think I'm just such an idiot. Okay, so let me give you a little tour. This will be like the main living room. This is kind of a loft style. I mean, obviously we're limited on space, remember, with our setback and how we have to be 10 feet off the property line, but this will be the bedroom living room area. And then here is that cantilevered bay window. So what's cool is you're gonna have a bench seat that overhangs the room. So now you have extra space that's not impeding on your living space. And coming into here, we're having a full bath. Shower here. The difficulty here is going to be how do we move around air? So what we do is we put in what's called chases. So basically we find spaces that we can just frame out our walls so we can run our ducts. In this instance, the air handler, that's the piece of the HVAC equipment that actually pumps the air out, and that's always on the interior of the home. That's gonna be located below. So we have to get air up and into the space. So we were thinking about building out a chase, either a small chase on this side, but that might make the shower a little tighter, or a small chase on the living room side. But it's a necessary evil. Then we're gonna come up, this ceiling is gonna be furred down to where you see, this is a like 8 foot tall ceiling. So we'll have room to run ducts and then we'll just blast them out the sides into the main living area. Now remember this conversation about chases and HVAC ducts and moving air around the house. We're gonna give you an in-depth look into when we run our mechanical and what's called the mechanical rough phase, and we'll go into all that in detail. Okay, so that was an update on our Tarrytown project. As you can see, we're well underway with framing. I'm really happy with progress. It always seems like we're just flying in the beginning. The frame goes up so fast. We're moving into our next stage. It's called the rough stage, MEP rough. Mechanical, which is HVAC, electric, and plumbing. There's a lot more thinking, there's a lot more fine details. We're gonna get in all of our wiring, our drain lines, our water lines, moving air around the house, and we will do some in-depth videos on each one of those. Take it easy.